And now,
Hey, howdy, folks. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Red Peace Machine. I'm Ray Woody, and we're here with Susie Sheeler, Benevshe Madadinejad, Roy Casagranda, and Ramesh Nadeem. I'm doing well. How's everyone doing today? You want to start with check-ins? Susie, how you doing?
sure, I'm doing just fine. Thank you. My cousin drove down in her hermetically sealed car and visited me for a few days, and I had a really great time. She's from Arkansas, and that's what I've been up to.
Alrighty. Ramesh, how you feeling?
Doing well, doing well. A little sleepy, but enjoying your perky energy. It's waking me up.
Thank you. I did some cleaning this morning, so that always
Ah,
gets me in the mood.
I like to hear that. I like to hear that.
mhm.
And then, Banafshe, how you feeling?
Pretty good, pretty good. I had to miss a few days of work last week because if you do a COVID test, then you can't go back to school to teach. And it's all very murky. And yeah, I can go on and on about that. But I'm going
Wow.
back Monday. So yeah.
Yeah. Dang. And Roy,
Okay,
Roy War.
there's a lot been going on, and one of the things that I think Banasha and I have finally come to terms with is that we're both probably suffering from long COVID.
Yeah, I haven't come to terms with it yet, but okay.
Oh
Um,
no.
we're working on it with her. I finally accepted,
I
and
understand
wow.
that.
and it has actually included 2 hospital visits in the last 30 days, one for each of us.
Yeah.
And strangely enough, after the last one, which was Banafsha's turn, Fauci came out and he listed the symptoms for long COVID. They include difficulty breathing. It includes things like your eye could get attacked.
Like,
Yeah, I remember
like
you said
yours
that.
did.
Yeah, organs
right.
can get attacked. It doesn't have to be lungs. It could be anywhere in the body. Fatigue. You get onset of cold symptoms, including achy body, and then it goes away. And so, it looks like you had the cold, which is interesting because, right, the cold is a coronavirus. So
Right.
apparently COVID is causing this for people who have long COVID. And one of the things that has happened is I think I have had cold symptoms once a month since February. And
Wow.
like I've never been this sick before in my life. And now I'm like, oh, thanks for explaining it, Fauci.
So you
There we
said
go.
February. Y'all had it way back in February?
Yeah, so we'll never know for sure if I had COVID. It's not 100% by any means. There were no tests at the time. And
Right.
and I saw 3 doctors over the course of 4 days because my symptoms were so insane. And none of them even thought that it could possibly be COVID. Like they were giving me,
Really?
like it never occurred to
Nobody
anybody.
knew. It wasn't really
Yeah,
Oh,
on
that's
people's
right.
right.
radar.
They
Like,
weren't telling people
mm-mm.
yet. I'm
No.
Right.
And then in March, I saw a 4th doctor for a completely unrelated situation. But I told him, look, let me tell you my symptoms because I just want to make sure I'm not messing you guys up. And they're like, don't worry about it. Yeah, come on in.
Yeah.
and the symptoms were, just 8 out of 10 of the COVID symptoms.
Oh, just that.
Yeah. So I think, we're now realizing, oh my God, we might have had it early. And if
Yeah.
Benefsha had it, it was January.
Man.
Yeah, I have
So
a
it was-
friend who's going through the same thing, and she's come to that same conclusion that it's just a hangover from COVID. So what are the insurance companies going to do about pre-existing conditions?
Well, then, as long as the Affordable
Right.
Care Act remains intact, there's nothing they can do about it. But so, Biden had to undo Trump's executive orders regarding that. And then we're probably going to have to somehow try to get the penalty for not paying back in because it makes the constitutionality of the Affordable Care Act iffy if there's no IRS penalty.
Wait, why does that make it iffy? I'm sorry. We weren't
So-
going to talk about the AHA today, but
I can say this then. The way it survived when it went up in front of the Supreme Court, when Roberts voted with the 4 liberals to let it survive, was his opinion was it was permissible because it was a tax. And the basis for that was that the IRS hit you with a penalty in the event you don't have healthcare coverage. making it into a tax.
Oh.
So if you take that away, which Congress did, and there's no longer a penalty, then is it still a tax?
Yeah.
And so it leaves it vulnerable for a future Supreme Court ruling. In fact, the Supreme Court did look at it this last year, and there was, I thought that might be the end of it, and they ended up not doing anything, but that doesn't mean it can't come up in the future.
Wow.
But they can do it with a simple majority, right? Because they can use the exact same procedure that the Republicans used, budget reconciliation, to come back and tweak it. So it's not like it's a hard thing to do. It's not like you have to get a filibuster proof anything.
Right.
Yeah, man. All righty. So we were talking through the,
How's Benesha? Did we ask? Oh yeah, she said, I'm fine.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be as chatty today probably, but
That's okay.
Yeah.
Just checking in. Sorry, Roy.
Oh, no, you got Yeah, so we were talking about, Roy wanted to speak about the Robin Hood that goes on here in Texas concerning, I don't know the full details of it, but concerning pulling funding from wealthier districts to help fund smaller districts.
School districts, yeah.
Yeah, school districts, exactly. Do you have a story or something about that?
So let me tell you a story. So actually, what I want to do is I want to talk about faulty thinking and disinformation, because I think that's one of the things that's driving U.S. politics right now. Is there's both illogic and disinformation, and the two merged together are really toxic. So
and we're talking about disinformation, not misinformation.
Yeah, because at some level, it's obviously a little bit of both, right? Like, I'm sure some of it is, I made a mistake. I didn't mean to do this. I make mistakes all the time, and I'll go back and I'll be like, oh, I can't believe I did that. I got the chronology of this wrong, right? But some of it, I think, is malicious and fits in the category of disinformation as opposed to I was misinformed.
Right.
So I'll give you an example, which is the Robin Hood thing. So conversation it was this last week that just happened with the person. The person is going to their child goes to a wealthy school district in Texas. And she was annoyed because there was recapture, and also known as Robin Hood. And here's what happened. The Texas Supreme Court ruled that the method that we use in Texas to generate funds for schools are unconstitutional. And here's why. The Texas Constitution explicitly says that it is the role of the state of Texas to provide public school education for every child in Texas, period.
Regardless if they're a citizen.
Yeah. Although things get changed. For the record, the Texas Constitution, the original draft of it, the 1875 Constitution that was put into place in 1876, the thing that we have now, said no person shall be made illegal. And what? I don't remember the year, but I want to say it was 1996, but it might have been after. It was definitely not before. We had a constitutional amendment in Texas that changed that. How many do
we have? We have a million constitutions.
Oh yeah, we have, last check, we had 666, which I believe does mean we are satanic. I could be wrong about that number now, but at one point we had 666.
But this one?
No, it was 666 attempts, I think. I don't remember. Anyway, and yeah, I think it was 666 attempts and like 483 passed, something like that.
And this one you're talking about was 1996.
That's the year I remember, but it could be wrong. It's definitely 96 or after, probably not before, not after 2006. And what happened was we passed a constitutional amendment in Texas that said no citizen shall be made illegal. So the one thing in the Texas Constitution that was good, besides the public education thing, we deleted it. So now it just should be thrown out and changed and revised. So the Texas public school thing is amazing because Texas has some of the best schools in the country, right? We have some amazing high schools in Texas. The vast majority of the schools in Texas are absolute garbage. I mean, bile. You could throw them out and the kids would probably be better off. I mean, we are harming children. We're not helping children.
So that babysitting.
So that by the time you take the best schools and average them out with the rest of the schools, which are the vast majority, Texas has got one of the worst public school systems in the country. Usually when
I'm sorry, I just have to add something as a school teacher at the moment. It's not for lack of hard work and good intentions on the part of either the administration or the not faculty. What is it in school? The teachers. It's it definitely is not that. We should do a whole show on this.
we should do a whole show on
I'll
that.
We've
bring my
got our
wife in
next-
on that show. I can
What-
bring
Our
my wife in
next
on that
3
show.
shows
Yes,
are planned.
please. 3 shows planned, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to interject,
I
just to be
appreciate that.
clear about that.
Because the
Yes,
Supreme
absolutely.
Court in Texas is clear about that.
Yeah.
It concluded that the reason why we had, 10% of our schools were good, 10% were mediocre, and 80% were horrid was because of the way we fund in Texas. The schools simply just don't have the resources to function.
Mhm.
And so the way we fund is according to the tax base in your neighborhood.
I also want to say something else. It's funding, but there are a group of people up there making decisions that are, I don't know why they make the decisions that they make, but the decisions are harmful. I'll just say that. And they don't make much sense.
And
All right.
didn't we defund the schools? I mean, like
So that's what
everybody's
recapture is.
right. Okay. So everybody's freaking out about defunding the cops, but education was okay.
Yeah, right. So there's two things going on. There's No Child Left Behind. That might be what you're talking about. And then there's recapture. So recapture, also known as Robin Hood, is where rich school districts have to pay into a pool, or there are other methods too. You can adopt a poor school district. There's different ways you can do this. And then the money from the pool is distributed to the poor school districts. And that's called Robin Hood because we're taking from the rich and giving to the poor. So
It used to be busing. I was around when they bust us.
busing is a whole different issue that we should also have a whole show about.
Okay.
Because the data on busing is amazing. Like
Mhm.
one of the fast fixes for everything in Texas would just be to start busing again. But
They
Yeah.
stopped that quick.
Wow.
yeah, they did. And by the way, thank you, Joe Biden.
Yes, that girl
yeah.
was me.
What was that?
Not Kamala Harris. That girl was me.
Yes.
When you said Biden.
The first debate. And that's when I knew my prediction was right, that they would totally be on the same ticket together.
That's brilliant.
It was brilliant.
It was a race. Man.
So
It was
yeah. So then there's No Child Left Behind. The idea behind No Child Left Behind is if a school is failing, we cut off its funding. So we lost Ramesh. So it's the equivalent of a starving person goes into a hospital because they're suffering from the debilitating effects of starvation, and the doctor goes, "Have you eaten recently?" And you say no, and they go, "I'm sorry. Our hospital policy is nobody gets any nutrition unless you've been eating." Right? A school is failing because it doesn't have the funds to operate. And what do? You cut its funding?
Makes no sense.
Insane. Okay, but I want to talk about Robin Hood. So this parent is complaining. Here's why. You ready? She doesn't understand why her rich school district has to pay Austin AISD money so that AISD could build a $20 million golf course. So I'm like, nobody paid AISD anything. AISD is one of the rich school districts. It's one of the payers. She's like, no, I know we did this. I'm like, no, I know you didn't.
What is she in Westlake or something?
Go one west. Go from Eanes
BK?
to Lake Travis ISD.
Oh God. Okay.
Yeah, and so I go, look, I'll look into it further, but I know nobody pays AISD. AISD pays. AISD is one of the schools that, and then I'm like, and there's no $20 million golf course in AISD.
No, God,
This
what
is
that?
This is disinformation. So finally, a person that was there goes, there is a tennis court on top of a parking garage. Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's true.
a brand new parking garage was just built for Bowie High School. So let's call them out. It's amazing because what other high school in AISD has those resources? but that was AISD funds.
Hmm.
And it wasn't a golf course, it was a tennis court. And the tennis court could, how expensive is a tennis court anyway? So it's really
Especially if it's on a parking garage. I
yeah,
mean,
like it's a good use of space as far as I'm concerned. The parking garage has me questioning, not the tennis court.
yeah, I'm like, well, how do you get the ball if it goes over?
Oh
Are
well.
you jump? Are you like,
I'm sorry, but if they put cages up there, you just got to turn the thing into a cage match at that point, right? Up there, you might as well.
Absolutely.
Serena Williams would be killer in that.
Oh my God, literally.
Oh, you play tennis and then you do a cage match? The
Yes.
wrestling cage match.
Yeah, the rest of the cage match.
So I looked up the data just because now I need to know. Like I know I'm right about AISD, but I need to know the numbers. It's not just that AISD is one of the payer districts. It is the biggest payer district. There is no district in Texas that pays more. In fact, it's absurd how much AISD pays $400 million of recapture a year. And somebody needs to look this up, but I think the total budget is 1.1 billion. So it's almost 1/3 of the total budget goes to recapture.
That's about as much as UT makes on its sports program.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah?
Yeah. The only other state school that makes any money is Alabama, and they only make 1 million.
That's crazy.
I know. So they could just give that to the
They could just
schools.
give that, but they won't because they need to do their weapons research programs. So having said all this, the top 5, the next highest is 100 million. Like AISD is literally paying 4 times what number 2 is. And Lake Travis isn't even in the top 5. I'm trying to remember what the top 5 were. Eanes was there. Plano was there. Houston ISD was number 5.
What?
That is
What?
shocking.
No.
So the first thing that we need to actually ask is why are poor districts classified as rich by the state? Like how the hell did Houston ISD get classified as a rich district? I get Austin, right? We have so much money we don't know what to do with it. But poor Houston. And Houston was paying something like 95 million a year, or maybe it was 75 million a year.
Those poor people.
It's bullshit. But then here's the next part, and this is the important part. AISD has horrible schools. Eastside Memorial has been closed how many times because it doesn't function? On a scale of 1 to 10, it's rated as a 1.
When you say function, do you mean able to corral kids, or do you mean accreditation?
Accreditation. Okay. Like it just doesn't, it keeps failing. It keeps failing no child left behind criteria, which by the way is terrible. We should get rid of no child left behind, but it's still an indication that the school needs help. It's a 1 on a scale of 1 to 10. Bowie's a 9 on a scale of 1 to 10, and both schools are in the same district. In fact, one school just got a parking garage
and a tennis court.
So one of the problems with all of this is not only is there disinformation, there's no golf course. By the way, La Jolla ISD did build a $20 million water slide. 20 million, I don't know if I said billion. $20 million water slide.
For the swim team?
I don't know. It's a water slide.
Well, I guess it's probably a part of the curriculum where you learn how to build water slides to take that to Slitterbahn. You get a job at Slitterbahn.
Exactly. That's got to be it. And they are a receiver school district. So I'm not saying there's no corruption in recapture.
That would be a great idea on how to get down after the cage match.
That's a good point.
So I think one of the lessons that people need to do is when you hear something, my mom used to say, believe none of what you hear and half of what you see. We need skepticism back in our society where people are going out and checking the facts. Like so when you're being told that money's being sent to Austin, like you need to go, what?
Yeah.
They're so rich. How is it that money is being sent there? What we need to do is figure out how to get some of Bowie's money to Eastside Memorial.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Because out of the high schools in AISD, I think there's a 9, a 7, a 1, and the rest are all like 3s.
I think we need to have Ken on.
Yeah, we need to have
we
Ken
need to
on.
have Ken
We need to
on.
have a conversation about this.
Yeah.
We need to, yeah, yeah. I feel like we're going in a direction than we had planned, but it's a fabulous conversation. I also, my mom was a teacher in AISD for many years and then moved over to Georgetown. And the reason we moved was busing. And I was on the east side, so I was on a bus for like an hour and a half just to get to a good school. And the the problem at that time was not only money, but teachers didn't want to teach over there in our part of the world and on the east side because it was not a nice place, but they just didn't want to go over there. So it was hard to entice them to come over. So what do we do with that? We have to have some kind of universal pay for teachers, a baseline at least, right? Because all you're getting are these fresh new teachers who've never dealt with students before
Yeah.
other than student teaching.
Yeah, the entire school system needs to be reworked. And by the way, there's some great examples of functioning school systems. I mean, New York City has an amazing school system. And when you think about the challenge that they have, having that many schools and that densely populated of an area, and for them to pull off the kind of success that they pull off, it's really remarkable. And then you look at Texas with all its oil money, and its verbal scores on the SAT are, usually right around 47th in the country, and quantitative we're usually like 42nd. How is it that the Saudi Arabia of the United States doesn't have the ability to educate its population?
Doesn't want to.
It doesn't want to. It's
exactly. It's at the lowest rung of what they want to do. Texans to accomplish, I guess, or be a part of.
Exactly, but then it makes us unconstitutional because our constitution says we have to do this.
I want to shelve something. When we come back to talking about schools, I definitely want to talk about what Susie was talking about, the teachers not wanting to go and teach in a specific district or a specific area of a city, of a particular district or a school, because
do you find that's true also?
Are we having this conversation? Because I can talk a lot about this.
I think we've kind of slid into it.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I've only been in Maine or ISD. So for those who are not in Austin or even in Texas, Manor is a working class town in the outskirts of Austin. And my students I don't know how many students I have. I have a total of 1 or 2 white students. The rest are Black and brown kids. And I have to tell y'all something. I have not taught in a white part of town of Austin, but I have been in white organizational spaces, the university, especially a university in Georgetown, Texas, again, a very conservative town. Susie grew up there. Very conservative Texas town with very strong white supremacist sort of culture. And I have to say that for me, this place is nice.
Which place? St. Ed's or here?
Maynard.
Southwestern. Yeah, Manor is nice for me.
Yeah.
That's
Southwestern
what
is
feels Southwestern felt hostile. It felt disrespectful. It did not, they wanted me out of there. That's what they wanted.
I'm surprised, honestly, I'm surprised they hired you.
I mean, I slipped in and they tried for years. Ramesh can attest to many of these things, but they tried for many years to get rid of me. At any rate, this place, it is, and through no fault of the administration, the rules that are coming from the TEA and the district and like above, let's talk like leadership, governorship.
Ridiculous.
The rules that are coming down are nonsensical. If I just go into 1 or 2 instances of how things have rolled out, y'all will just start thinking, what?
Tell us a story.
Oh my God. Um, yeah, I'm gonna have to think about how much I can share without getting
We
my
need to talk to our
people.
attorneys.
No, it's not without getting the admin in trouble,
Yeah.
No, I
because
totally,
Yeah.
these people are amazing, doing an amazing job, but have their legs are broken and they don't even have crutches. Like,
Yeah.
it's a shit show. It's a shit
Mhm.
show.
I think we could have several of these discussions about education. I mean, that's I think the key is we need to change the curriculum. The curriculum is ridiculous. I mean, if you're going to make us, rely on 401ks, teach us what the stock market is, please, because I don't know. Teach us how to
But they
apply
do
for a
in the rich
mortgage.
white schools.
Oh yeah,
Right,
for
which
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to Georgetown High, and that's a rich white school, and they did not teach us that.
Oh
They
wow.
didn't teach us
My
anything. They
my
didn't teach us how to balance a checkbook.
my fifth
Mm.
grader was just taught what stocks are, how
Yeah.
taxes work, how to balance a checkbook. But of course, we live in a rich
Right. It's a
neighborhood.
different, yeah, it's very different. Very
But
different.
we're in AISD.
Lucky you. So
Oh.
y'all are paying, y'all are getting paid a lot, or y'all paying a lot. Y'all are paying a lot for golf courses.
Exactly, that don't exist, it turns out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, the question that Banafsha and I made was we were living in a neighborhood that we really liked, but we were paying for a
Did not want
private
to
school.
move. Did not want to move.
We were paying for private school, and the math was that if we moved to an expensive neighborhood where our taxes were going to go through the roof, we would save money because we would be paying less than we were paying for
Sure.
private school. And we're basically paying 70% in taxes what we're paying in private school.
Mhm.
And so
Although this is not where we are in this particular, I don't know how to, like, large neighborhood or part of Austin. This is not a white neighborhood.
it's not a lily white
no,
neighborhood
it's
by any means.
not. It's,
Everybody's mixed
we
race
look,
actually.
yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
There's a lot of it was shocking because when we came here we thought, oh god, another upper middle class white neighborhood, and we were like, whoa, what's happening?
Right.
Well, yeah, these kinds of suburban neighborhoods are changing in demographic really, really rapidly. It's so interesting and strange to see.
It is.
It
Yeah, and a
But
lot of it.
also-
No,
go ahead.
sorry. Oh, I'm saying a lot of it is, business folks coming from California. So I'm not one of those stay out of here, California people. But I mean, I was just watching the video, and it talks about how a lot of the folks are coming from California to Austin as one of the main hubs that they're doing that with. It's like business centric, uppity folks. Yeah,
And that's why we're not weird anymore.
yeah.
And I'm happy that they're here. I just wish they'd build roads.
Well, they are, right?
Trains.
Elon Musk, right? Maybe.
Yeah,
We just get a bus system that functions.
dude, we're gonna get
I
a
mean,
subway
Yeah, right.
right through downtown.
I can't wait.
I can't either.
I'll be
2030,
dead.
2030, it'll be done.
God.
Well, they're
Oh,
supposed to route the traffic right from 35 to 130 in order to build that project.
my
It's part
God.
of what's the discussion they're having. Yeah.
Wow.
A
So I'm like,
two-lane, isn't that 2 lanes?
130 the toll road.
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah,
Oh,
it's
it's a
two
toll
lanes
road.
each
Okay.
direction.
that's what I
The toll?
thought.
Really?
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
So here's again a great moment for like, what the hell is somebody thinking? Why not make I-35 through Austin the toll road and make 130 free? And then that way, everybody going from San Antonio to Dallas takes 130,
That's
and
right.
That's a great
and then
idea.
it gives us I-35 so we can use it. I don't get on
Right.
that thing. It's worthless.
Mm.
You remember when
That's
they were
right.
going to get rid of that one entryway? I don't think they did. It's the scariest thing to get on that on the freeway. It's underground. It's like the lower level, and all of this traffic is coming, and you have to merge like almost immediately.
Yeah.
or you-
I was pregnant, 4 months pregnant with my first child, and
Oh.
almost got thrown off of that bridge by an 18-wheeler. Almost lost my baby because of that.
no. They should not be using those roads.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So for those of you who haven't seen The Matrix, they warn you in that movie not to get on those freeways.
mhm. Oh man.
All right,
Dang.
so we started from disinformation, and then
Mhm.
and then we were going to go into a discussion. We got off track, but you want
Did we? I think this is totally on track.
on track? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm,
And then
I'm really shocked, Roy, that you haven't told us more about Scandinavian education systems. I thought that's directly what we would go.
Finland! Finland!
Finland!
dang,
The smartest kids on the planet, Finland.
man.
Yeah,
So I
I'm
guess one
proud of
thing
my
well,
Finland Svenskar
yeah.
ancestry. I'm a quarter, 1/4.
Man, I guess one way to bring this back to what we kind of discussed behind the scenes was so here in Austin, there's that historical divide of 35, since we're talking about 35.
Yes.
Back to
Left
the
side,
60s.
right side.
The red line.
Yeah, the red line. So we're talking about the civil rights movement and how folks have been pushed to the east side, and then back to those districts that aren't getting enough funding. What are y'all thoughts on that? To tie it back into,
I think slowly but surely they're going to get pushed out of there too.
Mhm.
But where
Yeah.
do we get? Where do they go?
The gentrification in East Austin is because of
They go to Manor.
But here's the real problem with that. It's the white couples that move there and gentrify the neighborhood. When they decide to have a baby, then leave.
Mm.
And they come to my neighborhood because they know the schools there suck. So the effect is that the one positive that could have come from gentrification, which would have been that those young couples would have stayed and made babies, and then those babies would have gone to those same schools, and they would have kept funding those schools, and it would have helped fix the problem. They don't do, because they then leave. They're like, nope, I'm going to West. I'm leaving. I'm going to move to the other side of Mopac.
Or they go to private schools.
Or they go to private schools.
So
So
my child is not going to be the guinea pig for this.
exactly.
Right?
So the racism that gentrification includes, the one positive it could have produced goes away.
But then they have these charter schools, right? And my mom was a big proponent. She wrote a curriculum for one of them. I think the gymnasts who are here, they practice out at the Y, and she wrote a UT for them. But again, I mean that's relying on direct funding, I guess. And sometimes you go to a school and it's closed.
Yeah.
Just doors are shuttered. So, I mean, you can't count on those. And how do you even? I mean, if everyone could learn online, I think that would be great, except for the socialization. And we don't have any way for rural kids to learn because they don't.
I mean, I just don't understand why we have to have charter schools. Why are we not fixing the public school system? Like, how does this make sense? We always do this.
It's Reaganomics.
Because it's Reaganomics. It's creating this is a great opportunity for people to make money. Let's do this. Private. What? Let's just fix the problem.
Well, Betsy DeVos was she was scary to me because she was all for the charters.
And these charter schools are popping up everywhere. They take I don't know about how it is the rest of the Austin, but like here in Southeast, they're literally putting in these. We're pretty much in the warehouse district, so these massive warehouses. Oh, let's put a charter school there, and they tried to build another one in this place called Easton Park, is its neighborhood, right across from it, and they actually voted to not allow the charter school to build there because they have a public school from the WISD right in their area, and they're like, no, why would we do that when we can help build up our school that we have, our public school? So that was awesome. So it's good to see a pushback.
Which school?
It's Newton Collins is the one that's in that's Southeast. Yeah, that the one they fought for. So that was good. That was cool to see. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So
go ahead.
Okay. Well, just going back to a story about the public school system and how broken it is, because we keep ending back up here. And I don't think this will, no adverse effects from this particular story. So I am an immigrant. I came here to go to college. I had no information about K through 12. I'd heard stories. I had heard stories about the STAR test. My 5th grade son is taking STAR test. So that was the extent of my knowledge until September of this year. The kids at Manor and throughout Texas are required to take the STAR test in March. The STAR test is a assessment that kind of is out there to figure out how well the school is doing, how well the kids are doing, all of that, right? It's COVID. We still have to take this test. So I'm trying to figure out what this test is. Like, what does it take to pass it? I am told that you just have to make 42 or 43% to pass this test.
It's incredibly easy. I mean,
Okay. Why? So I'm just trying to figure out why. Y'all, I am a month behind because this is where we are.
Mhm.
Most of my classes, the students aren't showing up.
Oh my God.
The ones who show up are half there.
Yeah.
It's not just me. This is across the board in my school.
Failure rates in AISD are 2.3 times what they were last year.
So the teachers are pushed to the brink. We are at a nervousness and anxiety level beyond anything.
That's a measure of your teaching too. I mean, that's what they're looking at also, is how the staff is doing, right? And so that's the extra anxiety, is like, well, these kids are supposed to be passing this because of me.
And it's
Right.
how well are they teaching to the test versus
Yeah, exactly.
educating folks?
But then
teaching.
we're not supposed to talk about that. Did y'all know?
Yeah.
We're not supposed to
Really?
speak in those terms. No.
Yeah.
We're not
see,
supposed to
not
speak
good.
in those terms. We are supposed to, when we are tested on whether how for teacher certification, we learn how. There's a particular test about pedagogy. We learn how to lie, like the books that you read teach you how to lie to the perfect scenarios that are going to be presented to you on this test. And if you bring any, I mean, we're literally told this over and over again. So the level, I mean, I can go on and on and on and on. None of this makes sense. Like, I'm just kind of like, and you know, at some point, my colleagues have gotten used to this. They're so like, here's another BS. To work in an environment like that when so much is at stake. So much is at stake. I don't just teach math. I'm not just supposed to teach math. I don't want to just teach math. There's so many of these kids who I want to be the teacher that I needed, right? When I was in high school, with parents who were dealing with everything under the sun, just like these parents are. I mean, you give kids busy work. They're smart. They know what they're doing. They know what's going on. They will never trust me.
Mm-hmm.
They will never trust the administration. It becomes a game. They never get invested. It is BS from noon till, from morning till we leave. I feel there are moments of truth, but they only come when I say, oh my God, I cannot believe, right? When I become self-reflexive and open about, holy crap, like what the hell, they start listening.
And it teaches them, right, how much stake and investment to put in their own self and their own education when they look at all these signals around them, right? If admin is dealing with them in a certain kind of way, if teachers are dealing with them in a certain kind of way, and they sense the sort of the performance-ness of it, right? Performativity, I don't know, the performance of it, then that tells them this is how I need to be valuing my own self and my own education for the next several years.
Also, I need to pretend.
Yeah, I need to perform in a certain kind of way.
It's all a game.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody really cares about me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really important. What's important is the the play
Mhm.
that we're all putting on. I don't know what that does to a psyche. Like, with this much living a lie at this age, I mean, I lived a lie growing up.
It
right?
trains them for work.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. They don't
Right?
do
It's
anything.
really good training for
it
corporate
didn't do
America.
that for me, though,
Yeah.
Ramesh. So
Oh.
I grew up in the Islamic Republic of Iran, where education was a show. Like, literally, I would go in the morning. I would pretend to be somebody.
Mhm.
Although the education level was super high,
Especially math and
super high.
science.
I mean, I had all of my chemistry, all of my physics, and all of my math classes for the first 2 years of college when I got here in high school. And I wasn't
Oh.
even math track. If I had been math track, I would have probably done all 4. And I was studying physics in college. It's crazy. So yes, the level of education was high, but expectations were high, but everything else was a lie. That created someone who has, I'm talking about myself, someone who has issues with authority, someone who does not trust anybody's telling them the truth. That's like ingrained in me.
And now, oh my God, I mean, our government's been lying to us for how long? I mean, it's just really pushed it to the forefront. I don't trust anything.
Good. Believe none of what you hear and half of what you see.
Half of what you see.
I just want to point out, at the start, I said I'm going to be quiet. Y'all made me feel comfortable. I had a bit of anxiety going into this today, but yeah, I'm feeling it.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Okay, so let me tell you a story.
Okay.
Another one.
No, I was thinking what we could do is we should build on this moment, because I think one of the problems that we face when, as activists, as people who are trying to make the world a better place, is we get caught up in the immediate, like talking about all this public school stuff can really make you feel hopeless.
That's the other thing. Yeah, we're pretty much hopeless.
And I think we need to.
I want to speak for myself and some of the administration, the Black leaders in that school are just like, I don't know where they get it from. Honestly, they're like, yeah. Okay. They give me hope, but I'm like, all I see is just like, oh my God. Sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. This is exactly what I want to talk about. So one of the things that I think we need to do and check in with is there's a long game and a short game. And it's true that when we look at the short game, we're not doing great, right? We've basically had 40 years of nonstop setbacks. And you can look at every aspect of our society and see that. There are some places where there have been gains, like I definitely think gay rights have been amazing, right? The fact that we have gay marriage, for example. But if you look at socioeconomic indicators, where we are class-wise, where we look at race, women's rights, I think systematically we've suffered a lot of setbacks in the last 40 years.
And we're constantly under fire for those. I mean, you never know when that right's going to be taken away.
Exactly. Absolutely. But I think we need to remember there's also a long game.
Yeah, it's a
and that when you look at it from the long standpoint, maybe our setbacks in the short term aren't as devastating. Like, we need to sort of get things in perspective. And so the example for me is Martin Luther King. So I want to bring him into this equation. So I think most leftists look at him, and there's a little bit of an Uncle Tom thing that we stick on him that I wanna peel off, because I think leftists are looking at him incorrectly. They've made a really big mistake, actually. So the civil rights movement, in my mind, starts really 1919, 1920. The NAACP sets it at 1954, and I'll explain why. But I'm putting it at 1919, 1920, and here's why. The United States accidentally recruited African Americans for the United States Army. They were drafted. What?
Did you say accidentally?
Yes.
Okay.
So when the draft boards met for World War I, they purged everybody who had a non-Anglo sounding name. So if your name was Jose Rodriguez, good chance you weren't going to fight in World War One, because the draft board would probably just go, delete. If you're, you know what I mean? Like if you had a Japanese sounding last name, delete, you're out of there. So, but if your name was John Jackson, we don't know if you're black or white.
Doesn't matter to us. We don't see color.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when your name makes you sound like you're from England. And so what ended up happening was the draft board would go, okay, and check off that name. And then those black recruits would show up, they'd report for duty, and the army's like, what do we do with them? They're not supposed to be here. And the reason was real simple. It's the same reason why in medieval period you didn't arm peasants. Mm-hmm. If peasants never fight in war, they never gain confidence. They never feel like they earned anything. We didn't want black people to fight in World War I because we didn't want them to feel entitled. We didn't want them to feel part of our society. So we were willing to kill.
Isn't this why like Arab citizens of Israel also can't participate in these?
Of course. How weird would that be? Also, it'd be really awkward that first time that Arab was shooting an Arab. Anyway, so
which brings up the second reason: lack of trust.
Lack of trust, absolutely. So we sent those soldiers to France without uniforms, without rifles, without helmets, without boots.
Oh my God.
We didn't send them with officers. We just stuck them on ships in civilian clothing and sent them. The French are like, dude, what are you doing here? Do you not know about World War I? We're on the verge of being destroyed by the Germans. There's no tourism industry here. And they're like, no, we're not here as tourists. We're the army. And they're like, where are your uniforms? Where's your stuff? And they had to explain, well, we're black and the white country we're from refuses to train us. So the French are like, don't worry about it. They stuck them in French uniforms. They put on French helmets. They put them through French basic training. They gave them English-speaking French officers, and they stuck them on the front line.
So they were the Casque Bleu. Is that who they were, or they were a different legion, maybe French?
I don't know what they were called. I do know where they were in the line. So there was a corner in the line, and the Germans in spring of 1918 did the March Offensive, sometimes called the Spring Offensive, but March Offensive is a better name. And their goal was to swing through the western part of the line and come around Paris from behind. And there was where that corner was a strategic point the Germans had to capture. They wanted to capture everything west of that point, but they needed to capture that point too. And that's where those black soldiers were. And those black soldiers fought until they ran out of ammunition. And then as the Germans were coming into the trench, they used their bayonets until they broke the bayonets. And then they began using their rifles as clubs and were beating the Germans with the rifles until they broke their rifles on the Germans. And then they began fighting the Germans with fists.
Oh, wow.
And got citizenship.
The whole French line to the left of them, to the west of them, collapsed. And the Germans were on their way to Paris. And two things stopped the Germans from capturing Paris in the Spring Offensive 1918. One, the tank. The Germans didn't have any. They did. They had 20, but the Allies had like 3,000. So the Germans didn't have any. And that black unit held that strategic position. And that's what stopped Germany from winning World War I. Had they captured Paris, that would have been the end.
So Americans saved Paris, not
black Americans.
Black Americans.
America.
British and French tanks with black Americans saved Paris. And the French put so many medals on those black soldiers, they couldn't walk anymore. Like they're right. Like the French.
I just have to say, things were so bad in France that they trained black folks.
Yeah. Well, they had African units that they were using too. You never see it in any of the movies because they've been whitewashed.
Yeah, Algeria was a big part of that. I mean, most of Western Africa
and Senegal. I mean, just you name it.
Interesting.
Okay, so they have a kind of racism where they're smarter about it. They use
Oh, what
use people of black folks and people of color as fodder when they have to, but otherwise.
what they did was a few years ago they tried to delete the pensions for the Senegalese.
Oh.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
yeah.
I remember that.
So don't
Yeah.
worry, the French are assholes. They're just
yeah.
assholes in a
Oh,
different
yeah.
way.
Oh, yeah.
I actually lived in Paris when when the Algerians started coming over. They like opened it back up and said, "Oh yeah, come on, you don't want to be come over and work." And they immediately just stuck them in one
Ghettos.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And walled it off.
and then I would be on the train, and I was fully illegal. I should not have been there. I was working illegally, but I could be sitting next to a black citizen, French citizen, and they would ask her for her papers instead of me. And really, they should have asked me.
But I mean, that's the level of racism, right?
Well, exactly. So it's not different there, I don't think, except for, like you said, Vanessa, that when they need fodder, they will. I mean, because everybody has to serve over there.
Yeah.
You have to give 2 years of civil service. So, I mean, then they can call you back up at any time. Yeah.
For the record, 3 of those black veterans were given a medal by the United States. I want to say it was 1998, but I'm probably off on my year, by Bill Clinton. They were the last 3 living soldiers.
I remember that.
And he stuck medals on them and said, these guys are true heroes. The reason all this matters, besides the fact that we need to remember these things, is those men came back from fighting in France and went, I'm owed rights. This is bullshit. And they began to push back. And so that's why I'm dating this as the start of the civil rights movement. Now, they don't have any glorious victories really until 1954 with Rosa Parks, but it took 35 years to get to Rosa Parks. It didn't happen in Rosa Parks. We make it sound like she happened to be on the bus and she happened to move. She was an activist. They were planning for this.
Yeah.
They picked her to be the person to do this.
Yeah.
Like this was deliberate.
There's a lot of organizing that went into this before it happened.
Right. I heard that it actually happened, but with a different woman. And so then they decided, oh yeah, we're going to do this, but we're going to plan it and do it right and make sure that, everybody sees it. But I mean, that's just a rumor.
And then Rosa Parks never ended up being the Supreme Court case. It was the Browder case that I tried to remember last show and I've already forgotten. It's the other case that gets it, but it's because Rosa Parks does this that we think, oh, that's the beginning, but it's not the beginning. They took 3.5 decades to get to that moment, not to mention all the struggle that had happened before 1919.
Right.
I don't want to make it seem like there was nothing before then. It's just at that moment there was this congealing, there was this leap forward. So by the time we get to 1960, MLK makes a realization. And the realization is that the Southern Christian Leadership Council, which was the organization of Black ministers who were organizing the civil rights movement, they realized they couldn't win alone. There was this moment of, we're not going to make it. We're going to get victory after victory after victory, but we're not going to win the war. We need allies. And MLK actually starts actively trying to figure out how to get college students involved. Enter Stokely Carmichael and SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Right. And the next thing you know, student movements are now helping the civil rights organizers in the South. And the next thing you know, there's an anti-war movement that develops. There's a socialist movement that develops. Before you know it, there are Black Panthers, there's SDS. Yeah. In other words, MLK's reach out to students ends up creating what we think of as the 60s movement. And it was such a small thing, but it was a spark, right? It was a spark that set off this whole thing that MLK can't get full credit for, but deserves credit for, at least making the initial move. And then MLK realizes after 1963, it's still not enough. We need to make there needs to be another incremental change. And most people don't realize this because we've frozen MLK in 1963 and we've whitewashed his life. But the last 5 years, he was a union organizer. He switched from a civil rights organizer to a labor organizer. And that's what the 60s was. The 60s was a perfect storm between populist Christian evangelicals in the South who linked up with liberals in the North and students and the labor movement and created this life-changing event. It's our only revolution when you think about it, because the revolution was a civil war.
Right.
The 1960s was a revolution, and it was a revolution because these three forces, really almost four forces.
Let's not forget the women, and they weren't all students. Yeah.
And then in the midst of this, there's a women's rights movement, like, you know what I mean? And like the birth of the gay rights movement is starting to form in this. And there's the Native Americans who push back, and AIM is born. And there's the migrant farm workers movement. Like, it is an incredible moment.
Is it how like coordinated and sort of how strong was the coalition that formed around these issues? Were people, you know, who were ground and housed in like a women's rights movement very, very strongly on board with these other actions and movements going on? Like, how coordinated were these?
Yeah, I can tell you for a fact that the women's rights movement was not racially aware.
Or gay aware. Sorry, but they did not want any lesbians part of that.
Yeah.
They were
so the answer is it was fractured.
It was white and heteronormative. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, right. But there were these really important learning lessons, like the stuff the Black Panthers did. With going into a neighborhood and fixing it up and setting up breakfast for the kids going to school. That's exactly what white liberals implemented to try and fix those neighborhoods later.
I also want to say that was the model that the Hezbollah used when it started out. That was the Hezbollah's model.
And still uses.
And I mean, yes, and still uses, yes.
Wow.
And also became the model for the revolutionaries in Iran. I mean, it's kind of connected, but yeah.
So in the midst of all of this, we have this drive, I think, to create a revolution that instantly changes everything. We want to make this leap that makes it so that tomorrow we're going to have our utopia. And the answer, I think, really is that these slow, small, incremental changes, even when there's setbacks, are way more likely to get us to where we're going. It might take us 170 years to get somewhere, but then any type of instantaneous revolution. Like, we need to stop looking at MLK and going too slow, because what comes to mind is Nina Simone.
Yeah.
Mississippi,
goddamn. Go slow.
That was the first song I listened to this morning. Seriously.
And she's right. We need to work as fast as we can, but within the framework of not getting exhausted, not burning ourselves out, and knowing that when we fail, it's okay. And knowing that when we succeed, we should celebrate and get the little victories where we can. We've just suffered a 40-year catastrophe. And from Reagan to Trump, and they encapsulated it like bookends. Now we need to turn this thing around and start going the other direction again.
It's already been turned around. People have been turning things around since day one.
It's about the work, doing the work. I mean, you may not see the results. Your kids may see the results, but it's about doing the work so that somebody sees the fucking results, right?
Yeah. And we're just now, I mean, I think definitely in the last 7-8 years, seeing some real results, whether it's racial justice, whether it's anti-war movement. I mean, we saw that's been like 20 years strong, anti-war movement. But yeah, since 1991.
I think, go ahead.
My question is for the broader, I know that we've kind of reached those points, but like for the broader electorate, or the broader, the rest of the country, where do those go in? Where do those meet, kind of, sort of, in regards to like the anti-war movement or any of these other things that we see moving?
You mean, how do we get this out of the activist community, past Black Lives Matters, and into
even past the Democratic Party?
Even just the Democratic Party.
We just keep doing.
It's happening.
It's happening already.
The Democratic Party is now the Republican Party.
Except there has been a change. And I'll tell you what, I totally agree. Like Joe Biden is center right. Let's not lie to ourselves about this. He is center right. But you know
I
what?
don't know. He's moved a little bit.
He has moved a little bit.
Yeah.
Angela Merkel is center right.
Because he couldn't help it.
Oh, yeah.
And
Right.
I just want to be clear. She's currently my favorite leader on the planet. But that's
awesome.
but that's also because my bar, I've lowered it because I have to, because the rest are all garbage, right? I mean, except for Scandinavia and New Zealand, you know what I mean? Like, throw them out.
What
There
about
isn't
the
a single one
Italian?
of them.
The Italian prime minister?
Thanks for doing that.
Which one? The one who was
The one
2 weeks ago or a
that-
month ago?
Yes.
If you're an anarchist or a libertarian, move to Italy. They don't have a
Yes.
government.
They don't care.
You know, Susie and I were just having a conversation before we got on air, and Susie was rightfully talking about how there's going to be a backlash on women after these 4 years.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, and you know, sort of, I don't know, Susie, I don't want to speak for you, but something like we need to be aware of this, and what do we do, and we pay attention, and Arabs and Egypt at least say shad dahalik, yani, meaning you just gotta, you know, strengthen your resolve and just be ready, it's coming. And
Gird your body.
gird your loins, yeah, whatever.
Everything.
Endeavor to
Just-
persevere.
Endeavor to
Gird.
persevere. And you know, it just occurred to me that we keep talking of this, you know, our language is one of sense of urgency and doing. There's a sense of urgency. We got to do, you know, we got to think, do. And the reality is we're doing it. And a lot of the doing when it comes to racial justice or gender justice is ignoring so much of the noise. Literally, like when somebody just heaps it on, let's say a sexist heaps it on to me or some other woman, we just turn around, do the pushback, move the fuck on. Like, it needs to become automatic. And the burns are already out there. Our leaders are using them. Borrow. If you're the type of person who read up on the sort of the burns, get on Twitter, whatever, and we just do it and move on. We are at that stage.
Just like I don't have time. Whatever.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah.
And in the past, we might have had the burden of having to do all of this backsplaining, right? We don't now. We have a whole movement and coined terms now that they're using to throw at us, like they know what things are. We don't even have to engage. Like, boop, move on.
Yep.
No energy, very little energy. Just
And that
focus
takes
and move on.
that takes a lot of self-discipline when somebody is saying bullshit to you about you or about your friend. You know, it's hard to not jump in and just engage with them, but you're right. We don't have time. I don't have the energy. There are other things I have to pay attention to, and that is like, I mean, I don't mind hitting it one-on-one, like you said, but it's the grand scheme of things with the misogyny that.
Yeah, we're in a bigger game. These are small. This is chump change. We're in a long, bigger, longer game.
Yeah, and I don't think Republicans have seen the long game for a while.
But that's okay. That's to our benefit.
Yep.
If we see the long game and they're playing short game.
I think they've done a great job of playing the long game, right? So for the past 50 years, they've created an ecosystem where they can cultivate conservative lawyers and leadership in law, and judges, and the investment that have paid off so well. The investment in minority rule, right?
And then abortion.
And then on the left, there hasn't been anything comparative, right? There hasn't been a long-term investment in like leftist thought or leftist judge or courts or anything like that, which means that.
But there's been a lot of work in feminist,
gay,
racial justice so much theory building, so much
They're not
thought,
in the
so
court.
much cultural
Right.
awareness and education.
But here's the
That's
difference.
what we have.
Here's the difference. The difference is that the Republican Party, when the neo-Nazis and the tea baggers and all these other guys basically said, we want to move in this direction, the Republican Party was there. For the Democratic Party, when the left said, the progressives and the socialists said, we need to move this way, they were like, yeah, and we're going to do everything we can to sabotage you and make sure that doesn't happen.
But we
Yeah, there's a saying.
but
There's
we
a saying. There's a saying. You know, the Democratic Party is where leftist ideas go to die. And, you know
Yeah.
what I mean, they don't say
And the
that for
Republican
no
Party
reason.
is where the
Yeah.
neo-Nazi
They know they
ideas
have,
But
they
I
have a
don't- but I
captive
don't-
audience. They have a
yeah, but I
captive
don't
audience
think
of captive
they're. But
voters.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's gonna. It's dying.
Okay,
I don't think it's
here's
dying.
why I am going to agree with you. And it's because of what happened in 2015. When Bernie Sanders decided to run in the primaries, me and a friend, a leftist, went berserk because we couldn't figure out why on earth he was running. And the only thing we could think of was he was bought out. And I actually am embarrassed as hell at my reaction. Because so I'm a longtime Bernie lover from way back. So when he decided to run in 2015, I'm like, there must be a calculation somewhere. Did he get bought out by the Democratic Party? Is this some kind of thing to try and convince progressives to vote for Clinton? And you know, I posted stuff on Facebook that I deeply regret and should go back and delete because it's so embarrassing. And then I realized, oh my God, what he's doing is absolutely freaking genius. I just couldn't see it. What he did was he normalized the conversation about all these things. So it didn't matter whether he won or not. He won by running.
Absolutely, because he was on that stage. He was at that debate.
And so that's the answer, Roy, is we need to have these voices like AOC and Bernie out there pushing the normalization of these conversations. And by doing so, we've created a whole new set of politicians like Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris, and they might be deeply flawed.
Katie Porter.
But they're saying the right things and they're normalizing those things. Yeah. It's like Obama said, we taught our children things that we didn't believe, but now I'm screwing up the quote, but now they believe them. And now Gen Z really isn't very racist and sexist, even though the people who taught them not to be racist and sexist were totally racist and sexist. Yeah. So yeah, I think the answer is there are flaws. We're making progress.
And we're in the long game.
And we need to be in the long game. And thank God Bernie ran in 2015.
Yeah.
And speaking of the long game, I think the show is going to the long game. I would love to sit here, right? I would love to sit here and continue this all day, but I know our show is getting to that time. So any closing remarks from y'all? Anyone?
Stay strong.
Stay
Sleep.
strong.
Don't get COVID.
Get your rest. Oh yeah, don't do that. I should have said that.
Yeah.
Social distance, wash your hands, wear a mask.
It turns out Trump lost 20 million vaccines. If the death rate is really 1.5%, that's 300,000 people he murdered.
Oh, wow.
I heard he lost the election.
Are we still talking about it?
He also lost his Twitter account. That's the thing he wanted the most, right?
Yeah.
All his attorneys quit. He has no attorneys going into the impeachment trial.
They have 2 days to file.
Goons. Yeah.
Love it.
Thank you guys.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Great show. Great discussion.
Wait, Roy. What do you have something to say? Last words.
Last words for me. Now I like the note you ended it on because my note's a little bit different. So I like the way you ended it on because to me I still want to see that. I know we still got to push. Yeah. I think we still have to push and push.
Yeah.
Every day.
Every day.
Exactly.
Every day.
So
absolutely.
that's the thing. Mm-hmm.
Stay hydrated.
Yeah, exactly. Stay hydrated, social distance, wash your hands, wear a mask, be mindful.
Thomas, what about you?
Just take care of yourselves and stay grounded in local spaces. Who are you seeing? Who is your family? What's going on with you locally?
And let's get Ted Cruz out of there in 2022.
Oh, wow.
Our Revolution Texas is, I think they're starting a campaign on that. So I might want to check them out.
We got 4 years to do this.
All righty. Thank y'all. Tune in next time for a Red Piece Machine. Thank y'all for tuning in.
Bye.
Bye.